So in today's show, we're going to talk about two stories out of New York City. The first one is New York launches a $53 million program to hand out prepaid credit cards to migrant families. And the second one is New York City signs a $77 million contract with hotels to house migrant families. All right, so these are the two stories. Let's get right into it. So let's go ahead and go over the prepaid credit card story. So basically, this is going to be a pilot program that's run by a New Jersey company called Mobility Capital Finance. And they're going to be providing asylum seekers arriving at the Roosevelt Hotel with city cash to help them buy food. It's going to start with a group of 500 migrant families in short-term hotel stays, and it basically replacing the current food service that's going to be offered there. Now, these cards can only be used at bodegas, grocery stores, supermarkets, and convenience stores. And they're making the migrants sign an affidavit swearing that they're only going to be spending the money on food and baby supplies, or they would be kicked out the program. Basically, it's like SNAP, essentially. Now, roughly a family of four, for instance, can receive nearly $1,000 each month, and which basically comes out roughly close to $35 per day. And these cards are going to get refilled every 28 days. The CEO of MoK5 said they look forward to partnering with New York City to disperse the funds for the asylum seekers to purchase fresh and hot food, with the goal to expand access to financial resources and individuals excluded from banking, such as asylum seekers, which help the local economy. If the program is a success, the city will expand to all the migrant families staying in hotels, which is roughly 15,000 currently. Before this, the city had been shelling out about $11 per meal to feed migrant families in hotels, which they say is something that posed a long problem as asylum seekers from various countries in Central, South America, Africa, and Europe may be looking for a taste of home because they know they're getting all this stuff, basically. And it was just last month, it was a controversial company called DocGo was found to be wasting thousands of dollars on uneaten meals. And then that's the end of the article. I'm going to look into that company and maybe do a future video on them. So that's that story. And then the second story with New York City signs a $77 million contract to the hotels to house migrant families. So basically, they finalized a nearly $77 million contract, emergency contract to shelter migrant families in 15 hotels across Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. These hotels would be reserved rooms for asylum-seeking families for up to 28 days under contract with the Hotel Association of New York. The rooms will be available through the end of July. And they're meant as a backup plan if the city runs out of space at the city shelters. After 28 days, the families still seeking shelter will be directed to the city's humanitarian emergency response and relief centers to receive another placement. And that's pretty much that. Going down into later on in the article, it does mention that this contract comes a little over a year after the Adams administration has inked a $275 million deal with the same hotel association to house at least 5,000 migrants. The mayor, of course, has been calling on federal government to provide more aid to New York City to help cover migrant-related costs. The Biden administration last year allocated $140 million to New York to address the situation. And then it said a state budget proposal by the governor includes a $2.4 billion, plan to house migrants without homes to help them apply for asylum or work. All right, so those are the two stories that we're going to touch on in this show. Now, with the housing, I know it's always been a housing. I've done a couple stories before in regards to the migrant housing. A couple videos back when I believe it, since one of the stories did mention the Roosevelt Hotel, I believe it was regarding that Roosevelt Hotel where they were having issues, and then I think eventually you had migrants camping outside of the hotel, all type of issues. So New York has been housing for a while. They've been getting a lot of the migrant issue because, of course, Governor Abbott down in Texas was shipping them up there. Shipping sounds like so bad. was sending them up there to New York. And so New York has been dealing with this. And it's been an issue. I've just been, just looking at the headlines, and because it's always, since they're dealing with so many migrants, they keep coming up with all these new things that they're giving them, and just different things. And I've just been, just seeing how it's going to play out and everything. And so, like I said, they've been getting housed in New York City. So this is basically just like another extension as I look at it. What I did find interesting from that article was the fact that this comes a little over a year after the Adams administration had inked a $275 million deal with the same association to house at least 5,000. Now, if I pair that number with the other number from the story saying that's 15,000 families out here, migrant families that, that's currently, I guess, in the New York area that needs this food assistance. And it took $275 million just to house 5,000 migrants. If you do the numbers on that and just triple that, that's $825 million. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. A lot of money to house, but you got to put them somewhere. The other interesting thing I thought about this story was that the hotels are meant as a backup plan if they run out of space at the shitty shelter. The hotels are a backup plan, but they did a contract with 15 hotels. That tells me they know they don't have the space. That tells me they don't have the space. Because if it's a backup plan to, cover if y'all run out at the shelter, I can see maybe doing a contract with 5 hotels. Y'all did one with 15. So that means y'all know y'all don't have the space anyway, as it is. And speaking about the $53 million program for the prepaid credit cards, that's basically SNAP. I mean, so people got to eat, right? People got to eat. At the end of this article, it said they have been spending $11 per meal to feed the families. I'm sorry, $11 per meal to feed, it said migrant families. I don't know if that's per meal. So I would assume per person, right? Versus $35 a day. So a family of 4, okay, so 44, 35, it might save a little bit of money if you look at it that way. I don't know. Somebody had mentioned, if they're staying in hotels, how are the people that get the call, how are they supposed to cook their food if they get from these grocery stores? And that brings up a valid question. Now, if the hotels that the city did the contract with are the type that had the kitchenettes, then of course it's not an issue because they provide, at minimum, little compact refrigerators and a little stovetop so you can cook. But if the city didn't do that, then I find like this is pointless. So hopefully the city, the specific hotels that they contracted with all have those type of kitchenette type styles. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. You can't do anything with just a microwave, and it doesn't make sense to give these the migrants access to benefits and SNAP like that, and then they can only have a microwave in the room. Now, don't get me wrong. They can do something if it's, because bodegas sell hot food. So, yeah, they can essentially go to the bodega or a convenience store if they sell hot food and have a hot meal every day. But it would be, especially if you're a family, more beneficial if you can just go home, go to the grocery store and have some food at their hotels and then cook like that instead of every day having to go spend money at the bodega like that to get some food. The responses, just generally looking, of course, are not favorable. No one particularly likes this idea of, and I think it's the headline, right? So it's essentially SNAP. I don't know why they say prepaid credit card. Well, they're credit cards because I don't know why they. If they're SNAP, I don't know why they had to call them credit card. I think that might throw some people off. Because if somebody's just reading the headlines, they're going to think they're just getting free free card money to go do whatever. But that's not the case. It has to be spent on food. Now, I'm sure there's going to be some workaround around this where, a couple people can go to a bodega or convenience store and get other things besides food and baby stuff. Because, some people going to, and they'll ring it up as food. So it's going to be get-arounds around that, of course. But a lot of the people from the comments I've been reading, are not, they're not feeling it. And it's understandable. Of course, one of the main comments a person always brings out is, well, what about the homeless population? Because, it's like the U.S. has had a homeless issue for a very long time. Very, very long time. Very long time. In the New York area, Skid Row in California, all over the United States. It's a very hard time to live. Even the people that are not homeless, it's still a very hard time to live, coming from COVID, dealing with all these inflation. Bills are high across the board. Food costs, crazy. Utility costs have risen. Insurance, going crazy. Just the daily things of just living. Everything has risen in price. So Americans all over are feeling that, right? Especially just the working class Americans are feeling that, right? And then it's like, you're barely surviving. I don't say barely surviving, but some people feel like that. They're barely surviving, or they're feeling so tight. They don't have that extra money to do anything with, right? They have to provide for the things they need. And with food being so high at the grocery stores, it's like that takes up probably the little extra money they did have. And then it's like you see this story of migrants just coming over here and being able to get free food. And, some people feel like that's a slap in the face. Now, you will say, some people that's for immigration and all that, I'm not gonna say for immigration, that's in favor of this, will say, well, SNAP is available for everyone that needs it. You can, just go do it. But the thing about SNAP is you have to qualify, right? And you can only make so much, and the threshold of where you can make before they stop giving you the money is like nothing. So it's like, if you make that little bit, just a little bit over, you can't get SNAP, and it's really not enough to really be comfortable at all. It's like those people that make that little bit over that threshold, or right at that threshold, you still, with the food cost being so high, it's still you still feeling that crunch. It's just difficult. It's just difficult. The Americans basically need some relief, and we're not getting any relief, right? America's not getting any relief anywhere. There's no stimulus in the talks. There's no extra money coming to us anywhere in the works, and then they see stories like this of migrant families being able to come and just get, for example, this story, free food, per day. That story I did a couple days back in Maine, where they can get up to 2 years free housing. That's a major issue. Housing is a major issue because of the cost. They're going to stay at hotels for free. It's a lot of things that they're just getting for free. And the Americans are like, well, what about us? We feeling so much pain. We have no relief. There's nothing for us, but all this money is going out. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes in with people that's not for these stories. A lot of them also are blaming the Democrats. Basically, it's how they're looking at this, is that the Democrats are allowing this, and that's like a whole nother video I'll have to do, but that's how they're feeling. And, a lot of them are thinking that the Democrats basically are allowing all this because the migrants are going to be their new voter base, right? And it's kind of looking like that. I think that's going to backfire, because I think once the migrants can vote, I think they're going to be conservative. That's just me. But I think that's the plan with the Democrats. They looking at it like this. The migrants are coming, birth rates are down in the U.S. and all that. So they're looking at, hey, it's a couple things going on. Birth rates are down in the U.S. and everything. So, people are not having kids like they used to, because for one, no one can really afford it. Kids are very expensive. Life is very expensive. Life is expensive. And then you add a kid in there, it's very expensive. So a lot of people are opting out of having children, right? Okay, so now if people are not having kids at the rate, and the birth rate is dropping or whatever, you got to look at the workforce in the future. So some people, that's some people's thought process is they're letting all the migrants over here to replace that workforce that's not, being born here. Okay. But then, you got other stories with all the layoffs happening, and then you got, with all the AI coming in. So there's a lot of moving factors. You got people believing the corporations are in on this, of course, so they can get cheap labor, all type of things. Because, like you said, the Americans, they're not feeling any type of relief from the government. Like I said, costs are high across the board. Utilities, groceries, insurance, housing is a very big issue. It's not a lack of housing, but it's a lack of affordable housing, which I did a story about that, and then a bunch of layoffs. The layoffs are constantly happening. And then the number one issue is the wages. And that's why we're in the situation we're in now, because the inflation shot so high, but the wages have not been keeping up with that. And so you have a problem. So from what it looks like, most people are not really feeling this particular story with the $53 million program. I get it. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know. I feel like it could be a cheaper way for them to provide food for them. But maybe this might be the cheaper way. I don't know exactly what was the food cost. I would have to deep dive, do research, and see, even if they even provide that type of information, to see what was exactly the food cost that has been costing, the city. And is this providing them the SNAP cards or the prepaid credit cards? Is this cheaper? So we shall see. If they're working there, they're supposed to say if they're working it, that affects the size of the income coming in. If I was a migrant and I was able to get this, I wouldn't tell them I'm working. If you want to try to get the max amount, but who can confirm if they're working or not, right? Who can even confirm the true identity of some of the migrants? Like, it's a lot going on. And then, the other issue is, they're asylum seekers, right? But some people feel like all these people are not asylum seekers. Like, I don't know. It's just a lot of moving factors, and I think a lot of Americans are just really frustrated. And, seeing stories like this doesn't help, because it's like, well, what about us? Right? A lot of Americans just feel like, what about us? It's like the government is, actively trying to sabotage us and just allowing all this other stuff. So there's a lot of moving parts. And like I said, I'm just been paying attention, seeing how things flow, seeing what's happening. What I did find interesting was I was reading through some of the comments, and somebody was mentioning about some particular, out of New York, some particular plan they were on where it paid for like the internet and like cell phones or whatever, and that they had recently got an email that it's going to be discontinued in April due to lack of funding. But then you got, stories like this where they're paying for the food. So it's like, this is my only thing. If it doesn't affect other programs, then okay. The problem is, I know it's going to affect other programs. Money just don't fall out the sky all of a sudden, right? So it's going to be affecting other programs. And then that's where the issue comes. Really, if we could just close the border for like a few months to get the migrants that we have here situated, because it's like the cities really don't have a plan, because they just keep coming, and they don't have relief, right? If you're getting a certain amount of migrants every day, and you don't have time to, you haven't even figured out the issue with the ones you have here to get them situated. So it's like, if we can close the border for a few months, so we can get the migrants we have here situated, then things could possibly be better. But it's hard to do that when they're not situated. You're still trying to figure out what to do with them, and then you still keep getting a steady flow each and every single day. And that's where I think the issue comes in at. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts or what you think about these two stories. Are you for it? Are you against it? What do you think? Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out some previous videos. Till next time, later.